Bill Evertsberg and I are preaching this sermon series on Sundays in Advent, and Christine Hydes as well on Quiet Christmas in the season of Advent, called Isaiah, 'Twas Foretold It When Half Spent Was the Night. We just sung those words, so you should be feeling where they are coming from. Bill Evertsberg and I were both so moved and in the moment with that hymn that neither of us remembered to come forward and lead our prayer. So you can tell that this is a hymn that is making an impact on us. It is Isaiah who is at the center of the Advent story. He is the prophet that we hold up in the season of Advent, and we believe that Isaiah has something to tell us this year in the season of Advent. And so here from Isaiah chapter 2 is our text for the day. This is what Isaiah, son of Amos, said and saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all nations will stream to it. Many people will come and say, "Let us go up to the mountain of the Lord. Let us go to the temple of the God of Jacob. God will teach us the way, so that we may walk in the path of the Lord. The Lord will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many people. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Come, all you descendants of Jacob, let us walk in the light of the Lord." Please pray with me. Holy God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be holy and acceptable to you, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. One of the reasons that the prophet Isaiah is so powerful in these Advent days is because the prophet Isaiah oscillates. First, despair, and then hope. Chapter 1, despair. Chapter 2, hope. It's a prophetic cycle of sorts, and it's easy when we read Isaiah's hopeful words to feel like maybe he's a little too optimistic. Isaiah is just a dreamer, starry-eyed, quixotic, naive. Some say these words are the swan song of an aging prophet. Swords into plowshares? Never. Won't happen. Weapons of war dismantled, disputes between nations set right? No, it couldn't happen. Spears into rakes and shovels? Impossible. But that's Isaiah. Isaiah shutters the University of War, closes the Academy of Warfare, defunds the College of Armed Conflict, and freezes all the grant monies formerly allotted to the School of Vendetta and Discord. Your new alma mater, Isaiah says, will be the University of Peace. All transfer students, please see the registrar for classes on disarmament, peacekeeping, conflict prevention, and mediation. Violence will not be tolerated. Surrender all weapons to the art department for immediate smelting. To be admitted to this semester's metalworking class, please talk to the blacksmith professor to see if you qualify. Yahweh will be your chancellor and president and will give opening remarks at new student orientation. This year, Yahweh will teach classes on gardening and cultivation with special guest lectures on weapon dismantling. All transfer students must register for Plowshares 101. All classes will be taught at the mountaintop campus. This is Isaiah's thesis. This is the prophet's hypothesis that a school of peace is possible, that there will be a day when we will study war no more. And Alice Walker gets it. Alice Walker knows that we must matriculate at Yahweh's school of peace. War, she says, will stop when we no longer praise it or give it any attention at all. Peace will come, Alice Walker says, whenever it is sincerely invited. Fred Rogers gets it too, and he is succinct. He gives it to us straight. War isn't nice. War isn't nice, he tells the children. And you'd think that this quaint and exceedingly PG and wholesome part of his episode is coming to us just in a singular mode, but there's an arms race in the neighborhood of make-believe. And this aired the same week in 1983 that PBS aired their 13-part somber documentary about the Vietnam War. Mr. Rogers, a Presbyterian pastor in good standing in the Presbytery of Pittsburgh, almost never lets on to his audience that he had the qualifications of a clergyman. But at the end of this singular episode, he displayed Isaiah 2 on the screen without spoken commentary just before rolling the credits. And earlier in the episode, he put Isaiah's words in context in a way a child might understand. You see, he says, people can imagine bad things, hurtful things, angry, warlike things. But people can also imagine good things, helpful things, happy, peaceful things. That's the prophet Isaiah. Imagine the good things. These words from Isaiah, swords into plowshares, had cultural clout with Mr. Rogers' generation and had become a shorthand for the possibility of peace and human flourishing. The turn of phrase is not always in the cultural zeitgeist, but in times of war and deeper longing for peace, the phrase seems to rise up into the collective consciousness. The phrase was in vogue after World War II, when the United Nations hoped to settle international disputes by peaceful means, a wild kind of hope, agreeing with Isaiah's equally disorderly hope that no more will nation fight nation. But look at the way the phrase swords into plowshares spikes in popularity, not just in World War II, but around the time of World War I as well, and also in the early 1800s during the War of 1812 and the Napoleonic Wars. Isaiah's words of hope are words for a people in crisis, people whose plight is weighty, people whose distress is raw and real. So do we need these words just now? Do we need a shorthand for the possibility of peace? After World War II, artist and Soviet sculptor Vucetich was commissioned to make for the United Nations a tall bronze statue, a sculpture called Swords into Plowshares. It is the most evocative of this poetic rendering made visible. And it wasn't easy. The world was drenched in Cold War tensions like the Berlin crisis and the space race. It wasn't easy to drag a 9-foot statue across the ocean to New York City, to the UN headquarters. An act of diplomacy, maybe. A symbol of a dream not yet realized, most certainly. If ending sword violence, turning swords into plowshares, if ending sword violence means nothing to you, I get it. There aren't stats on sword violence anywhere. Well, that's not true. There's one place where I found statistics on sword violence in the Game of Thrones. Jon Snow in the Game of Thrones has his sword violence statistics tracked by the Washington Post. And his sword is aptly named Longclaw. So we can come to expect, in a cultural context where the halls of power include thrones made of swords made by vanquished enemies and then breathed on by dragons, to have sword statistics. But in the United States and in our global world, our statistics look a little bit different. So what about this? Anglican priest and Bishop Dennis Segulin in Mozambique made weapons of war into works of art, ending the civil war in Mozambique by advocating for the surrender of 600,000 weapons. that were converted into art. Every person who brought a weapon anonymously could exchange that weapon for books or bicycles or building materials or a sewing machine. And he then commissioned local artists to decommission the weapons and turn them into art. One village had so many weapons, they managed to exchange their weapons for a tractor. Swords into plowshares, indeed. Bishop Segulin said the purpose of the project is to disarm the minds of people and to disarm the hands of people. Many monuments glorify war, he says, but what about using your artistic skills to glorify peace? And closer to home, what about this? Artist Esther Augsburger's Guns into Plowshares is a 6-foot-tall statue depicting just the plow, but if you look at it closely, you'll see that it's made from thousands of handguns collected from the streets of Washington, D.C. She was commissioned by Olympic medalist Riddick Bowe, a heavyweight boxing champion who donated $100 per gun to give every person who relinquished their firearm some cash in their pocket as an incentive to drop their weapons. The DC police collected more than 6,000 weapons in just 4 days. And the police department wanted to melt the guns into fence posts, but Bowe wanted a sculpture of peace. He wanted to see what would happen when we lay down our weapons. And so at the dedication ceremony, this is what was said. Columbine, Virginia Tech, Sandy Hook, Las Vegas, in a culture of violence, Esther Augsburger and Riddick Bowe, along with the biblical prophets of old, dared to imagine a day when rather than destroying enemies with guns and weapons of war, humans would find God-given strength and courage to feed their enemies with the produce tilled and grown out of our own fields. So how does this prepare us? How does this prepare us for Christmas? Can it, like the hymn suggests, dispel with glorious splendor the darkness everywhere? Can it give Mary a song to sing? Can it make the whole world glad? This ancient dream has been alive for some 25 centuries or more, and in some ways, it's an inevitable dream, an obvious dream. Humans at war dream of peace. It's ordinary. It's ordinary, and it's possible and impossible at the same time. Guns into gardens, megatons into megawatts, dismantling weapon-grade uranium into civilian nuclear reactors. War into peace. It seems fantastical. It seems beyond reason. But it is a dream writ large that each of us inhabit, that each of us reach for when we watch the news, or when we gather for Thanksgiving dinner, or when we pile into the car on a snowy day to make it here in time for worship. It is a dream that is at once absurd, but it's only as absurd as any other holy dream that we hold on to, one where there is human thriving to the nth degree. But in its absurdity, in its impossibility, there is a sacred reality anyway, a deeper realization that the promises of God are the true longings of the human being fully alive. We hold the treasure of this hope in jars of clay. A candle now shines, one candle to shine in the darkness, a light set and ready for the one whom we wait, the one who arrives small and in a corner of a stable in Bethlehem, where no one thought to look, not with weapon-grade uranium and wild armies to bear him up, but with shepherds in the field and an unwed mother to care for him. So guns into gardens, weapons into gardening tools, enemies to friends, that is our impossible dream that we share with the ancient ones and with people of every time and place. May we hold this hope gently but firmly, and may the day come soon. Amen.